In this particular episode of Positive Leadership, I want to talk about a very important characteristic of leadership, and that's respect. Effective leadership sometimes means making the tough calls. You can't be overly concerned about being popular. From the very first time you step into a leadership role, you have to be aware of one fact. Sooner or later, you'll have to take an action or actions that will be hugely unpopular with your team. These times become the crucibles that shape every leader's career. How you handle yourself during these tests will determine how far you'll progress in leadership and management. First, you must be sure that your decision is reasonable and rational. In making decisions that I know are unpopular, I ask myself this question: is this something I would do? If I can honestly answer the question in the affirmative, I will almost always go forward with the decision. I'll go ahead even when I know it may prove unpopular with the team. When meeting with the hostility of a difficult and unpopular decision, you must handle all the criticism with respectful answers. Trying to deflect unpopular decisions by attacking someone else's character will just further alienate you from the team. Difficult decisions are never popular. What you can't be worried about, however, is if you're going to be popular. That's a mistake I made in my first ever leadership position, and it almost completely derailed my leadership career before it ever got started. You see, I was only 26 years old when I was unexpectedly promoted to my first leadership position. Before being promoted, I was the junior ranking person in my work center. And as a result of that, I was always assigned all of the crappiest jobs in the work center. To make matters worse, a good majority of the sergeants gave me these assignments with a certain amount of downright glee. Now, because of the unexpected promotion, I was going to become their supervisor. And as you might imagine, this caused no end of consternation among the sergeants. They began an aggressive campaign to stop me from becoming their supervisor. When it became apparent that this tactic was going to fail, they started telling everyone that there was no way they were going to work for me. They knew their position would get back to me through the grapevine. Now, I didn't have any experience with leadership, so I made a huge mistake. I thought that the best way to handle their aggressive tactics was to assure them that I was going to be a gentler, kinder supervisor. I thought the best way to deal with these disgruntled sergeants was to convince them that I was going to be their friend. I thought the best way to be a leader was to be popular. Nothing could have been further from the truth. I tried to be everybody's buddy. As I had never been a supervisor or a leader before, I thought that this was the way I could gain everyone's trust and cooperation. Well, that didn't happen. I was seen as a pushover. The bullying tactics by the sergeants had worked. They used it to their advantage to evade all kinds of responsibilities. When our remote radios broke, they were all too eager to take the remote work assignments. What I didn't realize is they were going off to the remote locations to sleep, play cards, and even smoke some dope. This was the 70s, after all, right after the Vietnam War, and marijuana and hash were still pretty prevalent in the U.S. military. Well, because I wanted to be popular and not ruffle anybody's feathers, I just told them, okay, go ahead, report back to me when the radios are fixed. They never fixed the radios, but they reported them repaired when they came back to the work center. Again, because I was so concerned with being liked as a supervisor, I never checked their work. That took about 3 weeks to catch up to me. By the end of the third week, only 2 of 15 of our radios were usable. The other 13 all had significant problems that prevented their use. This caused major communication problems between our unit and the aircraft that we were trying to vector into the exercise areas. The situation got so bad that I had no alternative but to go and follow up on my subordinates' work. So, unknown to them, I went out on a Saturday morning to our remote radio sites and tested the radios themselves. Remember, I had been a technician just a scant year earlier. Well, that's when I found out the truth. 13 of our 15 radios were inoperable. I was so mad, I could hardly contain myself. That's when I hatched my turnaround plan. I was going to split my entire crew of 8 men and 2 women into 12-hour shifts, covering 24 hours a day until we had the radios fixed or we had parts on order. Well, that Monday morning, I told my superiors the truth, and I almost got fired on the spot. However, I laid out my plan, and I asked for 7 days to turn the situation around. I told my bosses if I couldn't fix it, then go ahead and fire me. Well, I'm not sure how I got the reprieve, but maybe it was the intensity in my presentation. They could see how serious I was. But that was the deal. I had 7 days to turn everything around. Monday morning was chaos. When everyone was gathered together, I started handing out trouble tickets, and I announced that we were now on 12-hour shifts until everything was fixed, all the parts were on order. Additionally, I told them that I personally had to verify every single fix action. Boy, talk about stirring up a hornet's nest. The first question shot back to me was, how do you know these radios are broken? The answer? Because I was out here all weekend testing them myself. Well, the look on their faces at that point was priceless. They knew the jig was up. I had caught them red-handed. Yet they continued to persist, thinking they could bully me into submission. Well, so what? You can't make us work 12-hour shifts. I was not having any of it. It was time to do something I had never done before. And at 26 years old, for the very first time, I exercised my authority, and I did so with a passion that I didn't even know that I had. With a calm, confident, yet firm voice, I replied, not only can I make you work 12-hour shifts, but I'm going to make it an official order. I now outrank all of you, and if you disobey my order, I will see that you are either reprimanded or brought up on court-martial charges. Yep, there it was. I had officially turned into a manager. I had officially turned into a leader. I had officially turned into a jerk. But my authority as a supervisor was overtly challenged. I had not gone to any leadership training yet, so it was the only thing I had in my toolbox to turn this situation around. Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. It worked like a champ. Within 3 days, I had 7 radios fixed and parts on order for the remaining 6. I had checked everything myself, and I was pretty confident that these parts would fix the remaining radios. So, only 3 days later, I stood everyone down from the 12-hour shifts. I praised everyone for their hard work, and the work center returned to its regular 8-hour routine. My bosses were surprised that I had turned around this disaster so quickly, and I was allowed to keep my job. I learned a hard lesson about leadership that week. As a leader, you don't need to be worried about running some popularity contest. That's not your job. It's not your job to be popular. It's your job to lead. Don't get me wrong. Just because you're in charge doesn't give you an excuse to be rude to people. You have to treat everyone with respect. But don't confuse respect with charisma and popularity. Your ability to lead means that people know without a doubt that you're the one that has to make the hard calls. They may not like it. They may not like those hard calls, but they will respect it. Without that respect, you may find that you just can't lead. People are looking for companionship from their friends, not their leaders. There's an axiom in leadership. It's often been said that leadership is a lonely profession. From my perspective as a leader, in the military, in business, in academia, that's a reasonably accurate assessment. And if you want to be a leader, you need to be prepared to walk that lonely road.